Okay. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bore da, croeso i'r cyfarfod fan hyn yn Bryn Bigan, Cyngor y Sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of Taxi and Regulatory meeting. Tuesday, the 16th of September, 10 o'clock here in County Hall. I'm Tudor Thomas. I'm chair of the licensing committee, and I will be chairing this meeting today. We'll go to the agenda, and if you go to item 1, which is apologies for absence.
None received, Chair.
Okay, thank you. 2 declarations of interest. No. 3, a number of minutes now to confirm. So we go to 3.1, Licensing and Regulatory Committee on the 20th of May 2025. Are people happy that that is an accurate record? Jackie, are you? Yes, thanks. Anybody else? Seconded by Councillor Tony Eason. Thanks. Okay. We go then to 3.2, Licensing and Regulatory Rights of Way Committee on the 1st of July 2025. People happy with those minutes? Councillor Eason, yes. Seconded Councillor Jackie Strong. We go to 3.3, Taxi and Regulatory Rights of Way Committee on the 23rd of July. Again, are people happy? Councillor Eason, are you happy to? You're quite happy to move that, Councillor Strong?
Just checking which ones. The subcommittee on-site ones.
Yeah, we'll just check now.
That was a full committee, Chair.
All right, thanks. Happy. Somebody online, happy to second? Yeah, Councillor Dale Rook, thanks very much. Diolch yn fawr. So we've covered all of the items under agenda item 3. All of the minutes are being passed as a true and accurate record. We now move to item 4, which is the taxi and private hire policy and conditions for 2026, and quite a obviously quite a long document. And I'm going to hand over now to Jane Rogers, Senior Officer, who's Chief Officer for Social Services, but does actually cover taxi and regulatory. So hand over to Jane Rogers. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, members, and to anybody watching online. I'm Jane Rogers, Chief Officer for Social Care, Public Protection. It's also within my brief, as Councillor Thomas has explained. So I'm not going to spend very long time just introducing the report. It is a long report. The report is really asking for approval from the committee to go out for consultation on a revised taxi and private hire policy and conditions, which we are aiming to have published in 2026. The original, the current policy, I should say, was adopted by the Council in April 2023. And is subject to a 5-year review, but interim reviews would be required depending on any changes to the legislation and policy and practice guidance context, either from England, where that applies to Wales, or through Welsh Government itself. So we have chosen to review the current policy because of a number of changes within that context. They are listed in brief in the report, the cover report at 3.7, but are highlighted within the policy in red so that people can pick up where the changes are proposed. Very high level, some of the changes relate to determining the suitability of taxi and private hire drivers and companies, including how we check for criminal records overseas, some equality changes around disabled users, and changes to the roof flights, and an update on the CCTV and dash cam policy, but they all set out in brief in the cover report and obviously in detail in the policy itself, where changes are highlighted in red. So we are looking for approval to go into a consultation process of 6 weeks, starting on the 22nd of September, going through till the 31st of October. We'd be looking to bring back the policy review into committee on the 9th of December, ideally with an intention to publish in January 2026. So that's all for me, Chair, if that's okay, and happy to take any questions. But just to reiterate, this is approval to go out on a consultation period about the changes that we're proposing within the current strategy. Policy.
Okay, thanks, Jane, for giving that brief introduction. It is a very lengthy document, and as has been outlined, some of the proposed changes are highlighted in red for ease of access. Are there any comments? I see Councillor Alistair Neil has got his hand up. Alistair.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Jane, for the summary of the report. I note section 11 or page 11 on fitness and propriety, but I wonder if I could just be clear on a couple of questions related to that. In terms of assessing suitability and reviewing the policy now, would we be retrospectively checking again or assessing again the suitability of any taxi or private hire driver who has previously met the policy requirements? And secondarily, and more broadly, on an ongoing basis, for any taxi or private hire driver who at any given point in time has met the requirements of the policy, how do we ensure that that continues to be the case in terms of their fitness and propriety for suitability to be in that role as time moves on? In other words, if they, in some way or other, their situation changed such that they no longer were a fit, proper person to be in such a responsible role. So those two questions, if I may. Thank you.
Thanks, Alistair. Yes. One of our licensing officers, Taylor Watts, now will take those two questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So if the policy is approved, it will come into force upon the renewal of each licence. So we'll look at that aspect there, and if there are any concerns at that stage of the suitability, the licence will be brought before the committee. So whilst the policy will take effect, it will ultimately be for renewal or new when the licences are issued, and they'll have that policy attached. And if there's any concerns regarding whether somebody would be suitable or not against that policy, it will be brought before this committee for members to decide.
Thanks. Okay, we'll go now then to Councillor Christopher Edwards.
Sorry, Chair, just the second question that I was asking was more broadly and moving forward, Taylor. How do we ensure that a person's situation who has previously been deemed and assessed to be a suitable and proper person to be a taxi or private hire driver, that continues to be the case on a year-by-year basis moving forward?
Well, ultimately, any concerns would go against the policy. So once they've been licensed, they've been granted that license against the current policy and the suitability guidance. So if ultimately upon renewal, we do a number of checks, and those would be highlighted against the new policy if that was implemented. And so those checks would be taken upon that stage. Checks do occur during the license period. So DBS checks, for example, are taken every 6 months. We liaise with Gwent Police should any concerns be raised for a current license holder. And those checks are ongoing, but ultimately on renewal is where the majority of the checks would take place for somebody who is currently licensed, or if it's a new application for a license, that would be checked for the suitability against the current policy. But it would be ongoing for the duration of the license as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Are you happy with that, Councillor Neil? Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Next question now then, or issue, Councillor Christopher Edwards.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jane, for taking us through this revised policy this morning. I've got it's more sort of clarification issues, really, and I've got about 4 of them. The first one is on page 13, and it's the overseas criminal record check, where someone has spent more than 6 months, or at least 6 months, out of the country, and it goes on to mention that where they can't obtain a criminal record check from the country in question, or if they can't obtain a certificate of good conduct authenticated by the relevant embassy or high commission, it mentions in one sentence about local authorities should risk assess the applicant, taking into consideration the reasons for not producing either of those documents, etc. I just wanted clarification. Is it up to officers to risk assess and form an opinion, or is it up to them to risk assess and provide the evidence to councillors at this committee? Shall I ask my other questions first before I...
Yes, if you list your questions, and then
okay.
We'll answer them between the licensing officer and the chief officer. Thanks.
Okay. On page 14, the medical checks, it's got 3 different scenarios there where a medical examination is required. I won't repeat them as you've all read them. I just wanted clarification on what happens if the license holder changes circumstances between these instances. For example, they may undergo surgery and be unfit to drive for a short period. I understand from the DVLA that the onus is on the individual rather than the medical examiner or hospital or whatever to contact the DVLA. I can see it mentions all license holders are required to inform the licensing authority of any illness or condition that affects their ability to drive, but how much emphasis is placed on this at the application stage and when a license is granted? Is much emphasis put on it, basically, enough to warn that person that this is a very serious issue if they find themselves in those circumstances? And my third question is from page 22, when you've got the National Register for Hackney Carriages and Private Hire Licence revocations and refusals. Can you explain that sentence where it says, in some instances, details of drivers whose Hackney carriage licence stroke PHV driver's licence has been suspended may also be entered into the NR3S register? So in other words, in what circumstances is that relevant? And my final question, or just point of clarification, is in regard to the CCTV policy, which is obviously something very new to this particular policy. And apologies if I missed the appropriate section, but it doesn't say how long the data will actually be stored, both visual and audio. I mean, a journey may be uneventful, but I expect passengers may not be too happy if recordings are kept for a lengthy period, or if the audio is activated in error rather than only when drivers feel intimidated. So could we have some clarification on that as well, please? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I think we'll go. Yeah. Daylight, do you want to take
Yeah,
Start.
yeah, oh, yeah. Sorry, so first question, so it would be the evidence, this is to do with the DBS check, isn't it, overseas, just to clarify, Councillor? Yeah, so it would be for the licensed authority to obtain the evidence of the reasons why certificate of good conduct wasn't obtained, and that evidence, whilst it's risk assessed at officer stage, that would be presented in the form of a committee report to this committee to decide whether to grant the licence or not. Does that answer the question?
It does, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Regarding the medical, a full medical is undertaken at the application stage. At the age of 45, another medical assessment is required, and then every 5 years up until the age of 65, where one is due annually. And it is emphasised to licence holders that they are required to let the licence authority know of any change to their health. Often then that is risk assessed and would either require another full medical, or if that's not undertaken, we do often suspend upon agreement with the chair and vice chair until a medical is received. Does that answer the question, Councillor?
When you say emphasise, do you mean sort of face to face, or is it just a sort of a short sentence or paragraph on the acceptance of the license that they hopefully read?
It wouldn't be. These conditions will be attached to the license, so it's not something we wouldn't necessarily project that to the applicant when we hand over a license, because there's many other aspects, but we would emphasise that the whole policy is taken into consideration. They've obviously undertaken the medical assessment, so they understand the importance of it and when it's required, and we send reminders out when they are required. But any changes to the health, the licence holder should notify us.
Okay, thanks. So the onus is on the individual to be responsible, basically.
It is. It's on the licence holder, as is within our policy. And the NR3 question, so the suspensions would be relevant if it was safeguarding concerns or anything that would impact if an applicant was to apply to other authorities for a licence. So there would be scenarios, obviously I can't go over everyone, but the main consideration would be taken for safeguarding concerns. That's all I could state for that. Similar to if we would revoke a license for those concerns, that would be put on the NR3 register. And regarding the CCTV policy, the data should be stored in guidelines through the Information of Commissioner's Office, the ICO, and it should also be determined by the licence holder within their own policy, which they should send to the licensing authority to review. So whilst we wouldn't specify a period of time, the guidelines should be through the ICO and then through the licence holder's own policy, which we can then review. And if any concerns are raised, we can get advice from the ICO and then implement that into their own policy.
Okay, Councillor Edwards, are you content with those responses? Yes.
Sorry, I think my screen froze there, and I missed the last bit. I don't know whether you can hear me now, because you've sort of frozen.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, I could see you had frozen. Do you want Taylor to go over that last bit of the fourth question?
Just the last few sentences, the last main points.
Could you do that, Taylor, please?
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Yep. So it's just advising that it would be through the Information of Commissioner's Office, the ICO, to determine those guidelines, and that's what the licence holder's policy should incorporate, which should be reviewed then by the licensing authority. But yeah, ultimately, guidelines through the ICO, the licence holder would create their own policy, and we can review that and provide any advice and guidance then going forward.
Okay. When it comes to these recordings, whether visual or audio, I imagine most taxi companies is probably going to be when there's a larger taxi company rather than individual taxi drivers. But who are the people who can only have access to these recordings? Is it the proprietor, or can the
Sorry.
Go on, carry on.
No, I was the data controller, because we're not mandating CCTV, so the data controller would be the license holder who would have access to it. If any concerns are raised, they should be able to issue us with the data. I don't believe we have any license holders with CCTV within the vehicle. Many do have dash cams, which shouldn't record audio and are forward facing. But in terms of the CCTV, I don't believe we have any at the moment. But if we do, they should notify us, have their own policy, and then that will be reviewed by the licensing authority. But the data controller would be the license holder, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Edwards, you happy? Yes. Move now then to Councillor Tony Eason.
Morning, Chair. Thank you very much. Well, I don't know whether Councillor Edwards is reading my mind, or vice versa, but he's asked most of the questions I've got. But I do have concern. I was going to ask a question about CCTV. I do have concerns about that particular section of the policy. I think it needs firming up, and I think needs to be taken away and looked at, because there are some vagaries in there as to retention of recordings, what they can be used for. So just in addition to what Councillor was saying, yes, I think we ought to look at that again. Second question really was, we've had an issue in the past, a matter in the past about language skills. That's on page 20. Who would be the determinant of oral proficiency or written proficiency in either English or Welsh? Who would decide that? Would it be yourselves in licensing department or an individual person? Could that be clarified?
We use Torvine Training as our course provider for that aspect. So they undergo that training through Torvine Training, which is separate from ourselves. And then ultimately we receive the certificate that they've passed that course. So yeah, determined by Torvine Training, and then form part of the full application, which is then determined by the licensing authority. But they would need to pass that aspect before they are invited to apply for a license.
So I take it that they will be proficient in the Welsh language skills as well?
I can't answer that because I don't know the specifics regarding the Welsh language and what is required. However, we can firm that up. But yeah, no, I understand your point.
I'm not aware of any regulation that a taxi driver should be proficient in Welsh. Obviously, if they are, that is a plus.
Make one. So the facility's there. Have we got the pieces in place to determine this proper?
So yes, I think I'll certainly note and we can take back. That's fine, Councillor.
Yeah, I think that's something that licensing can raise now when they're reviewing this policy post this meeting and when it's reviewed. So I think that's something that needs to be logged. Okay, thanks. We move on now then. Councillor Armand Watts.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As always, Chris has always got on top of all the kind of key issues really in these questions. He's pretty consistent. So my question really follows on really from Chris's concerns. But I didn't want to repeat because that would be everybody's waste of time. But effectively, where it says that for those countries for which checks are not available, does that specifically target everybody that isn't basically British? And I'm not looking to be controversial. So rather than wait for an answer and rather than just think the officers, I'm trying to catch them up or, whatever, does this also then impact on directly EUSS citizens? Because if it does, that may not then, this legislation doesn't necessarily join with the considerations that were given to those citizens under the legislation when they went through a very vigorous process of online, if I may say. The other point is for those citizens that do then have to go to their consulates or their embassies, I'm just thinking about this from a practical perspective, this means that the local authority is going to be very busy, because often or not, when those people are effectively trying to obtain their own passports or renewal, just like we do in our country, they've got 6 months left, they can't travel, leave the country. The consulates, for example, they have summer recesses, just like we do. It's very difficult to get through to a consulate or an embassy during the summer months because they have skeleton staff on. A lot of people go home. And then on the top of that, when they have, if there's elections in those specific countries, usually what happens is there's usually a new ambassador. That ambassador, much like a football team, forgive me for bringing up a football analogy, squeezing it in, will bring up their own staff. And obviously the UK is a much sought after position. So often or not, there'll be an entire new team. I guess what I'm saying is, in a rather long-winded way, it can take quite a long time for US citizens to effectively obtain that information. And that's excluding then the countries, and I'm sorry to bring this up, for those countries that where they are not going to get a response, where we've had citizens who have been through a process of, we've given them amnesty because they've been tortured in their own country. And frankly, it is ridiculous to suggest in this legislation that we expect those citizens to go back to the country where they've been imprisoned or been tortured, or their families are at risk, to then get some kind of guarantee from that regime. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Who's good? Is Jane good?
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Watts. But in this instance, our policy is to bring us in line with those national standards that have been changed outside of our local authority. We're responding to those, but I appreciate some of the challenges that might well pose in terms of timeliness and whether people are able to get those confirmations, in which case, there is another process. But we can perhaps go back and try and get further clarification in terms of some of how that might work from an operational perspective. But in terms of the policy, we're responding to the updates that have been made in that wider policy context at Welsh Government and UK level decision. So I'm not sure if Taylor wants to come in behind what I've said, but please do.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Yeah, I think it's just to clarify that should those certificates of good conduct not be received, then that's not refusal of the licence at that stage. Reasons why will be put together in a committee report for this committee to decide whether they are fit and proper. But those measures, as Jane said, through sort of national standards that have been put outside of the local authority, and we're implementing into our policy to deem applicants whether they are fit and proper, and those are the measures deemed appropriate. But should that not be not forthcoming, ultimately it would be for members to decide and consider the reasons why these certificates of good conduct were not forthcoming, and then those reasons to either grant or refuse a licence at that stage.
Chair, if I may.
Thanks. Yeah, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, very briefly. I mean, I do appreciate the response from Jane and obviously Taylor. But really, what I want this, for the record, is that we should be communicating directly with Welsh Government and those that have advised us, who directly advise you on this specific policy, about the problems that we have faced from a practical perspective, which were painful, lengthy, and quite frankly, if I'm honest with you, at times divisive. I remember there was one comment, and I'm not going to repeat who it was, which that it was controversial, that there was an assumption that there was an immigration helpline available. Well, as councillors with minorities within their wards, that simply didn't exist. So there is often there's a level of misinformation and assumption built into this. Whilst I'm not doubting anybody's goodwill and approach towards this, the officers and elected members. I just think that it needs kind of greater clarification, because otherwise we're effectively, driving into a cul-de-sac with this. Thank you, Chair. I'll leave it at that. But I do want it, for the record, I want it stated that that the committee gives consideration to writing directly, because effectively, if there is discrimination indirectly through this legislation, Jane should, and I say this with respect, I like Jane, I think she's a good officer, is that there is a safeguarding issue here.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Watts. I think we note your point. I think the difficulty is, and certainly we faced this in fairly recent times, balancing the rights and of the person who's applying, particularly if they come from challenging circumstances, but also we have to balance the safety of issuing a license, and I think in the guidelines it says that you would be happy for your wife or your daughter or your mother to go in that taxi, and I think that's the balance that we have to strike. This particular area where people have come from very challenging circumstances, they can't easily provide a certificate of good conduct, is very challenging, and I hope that officers and Jane will perhaps be able to go back to Welsh Government to seek a little bit more clarification, because it is a big responsibility that falls on the licensing committee when a case like this comes to us. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
We go now then to Councillor Jane Lucas.
Morning. Thank you very much, everybody, for the report. It's been interesting reading. Most of my points have been covered, actually, so thank you very much to my colleagues, all very, very astute this morning. The one comment that came back was about forward-pointing cameras and audio when we were talking about CCTV. The statement was that the audio should not be on. Well, great, I totally agree, but how do we actually tell them that that's the case, and therefore it's not acceptable to be used? And would anybody have access to that? I know that sounds a bit silly, but lots of people would get into a car with a forward dash cam and not think anything of it. And now there's dash cams with cameras in facing as well. And then my second question really is in reference to Councillor Easton's question about language and the test that is coming from Torvine. I understood all of that. If that's the case, I assume it will then help us when it comes to difficult situations where we're being asked to judge things and then we're asked then to have an interpreter, etc. That will hopefully be negated. Am I understanding that correctly? That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thanks. Taylor?
Yeah, certainly. So regards to the dashcam question, so the licence holder should notify or must notify the licensing authority. They must have a policy which we should review, and in that policy they should state how the data is stored. If they don't, we do undertake checks of licensed vehicles, so we should know if a dash cam is in place, and there should also be signage on the vehicle to notify people before they enter the vehicle or near the vehicle that CCTV and footage of dash cam is in place. Does that answer the question, Councillor? Yeah. Can you just repeat the second question, the second part? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So no, thank you for that. So basically, we're saying that signage should be there for any passenger to see that they're being recorded. That's great. Thank you. In reference to Councillor Easton's question, I just wanted to follow it up. Yes, obviously Welsh would be, for some people, be great, but also the English bit. So we've had instances in the past and where we've had to get an interpreter. Going forward, now that we're using Torvine, etc., for a certificate to say they've passed that test, would that negate that situation? That's what I'm asking, really. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. It's important to know Torvine training have been the course provider for many years now, for since at least since I've been in post for the last 8 years. Whilst you would think the English proficiency would be at a high level, it is, on fairness for applicants, we can allow an interpreter. However, I think it would be on each case, the individual merits really, for us to assess whether it is required. But certainly there should be that standard of language proficiency that, the applicant should be able to relay in English or answer any questions. But I think the option for an interpreter would be assessed on its individual merit.
Yeah, if I can come in here, again, thinking of a recent case, I think there's a big difference in terms of competence in a language, in this case in English language, when you're dealing on a day-to-day basis as a taxi driver with the person that's using your taxi service, as opposed to coming in here, which is a very official context, and the language level is probably extremely high, and therefore I think it's quite just that somebody coming into this situation who's passed the competence with Torfaen services, etc., but in this context, then it is very challenging, and I think it's up for this committee to decide whether somebody needs an interpreter, and that would be fair enough. I would not want to be in a situation where I was conducting business through, say, I speak 2 languages, but if I was going into a third one, when it is very official. So, I think there's a difference between day-to-day and being in this sort of quasi-legal committee.
Well said, Chair.
Does that answer your question?
No, it does, and I'm not disagreeing. All I'm trying to do is clarify, and that's what I was trying to do, is to clarify. So what I was wondering then is, can it be very clear, should that situation be the case, that that's available? And if so, make sure that when they come to sit in front of us, that it's all the ducks are laid up in front of them, and that they do come prepared with an interpreter, or we provide, whatever the situation may be. But what I'm trying to say is to make it clear, and yes, fair, but most definitely. And I have no problem with what you're saying at all. I just want to make sure it's there and it's easy to understand. Because some of these words can be quite intro, and you just think to yourself, what does that really mean?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. We go to the last question now from Jane McKenna.
Thank you, Chair. Just got a couple of points of clarification, please. Within the report, just Councillor Edwards picked up on it as well, about when you have to receive a medical, and obviously one of them is on application, and then there's the 3 different scenarios, one of which goes on to say 45 to 65. Just for my understanding, if somebody was 20 years old and applied for a licence and was then granted that licence at that age and had the medical, am I right in thinking they wouldn't then necessarily need a medical for 25 years until age 45? So that was my first question, to clarify, please. And then it's showing up at page 45 on my screen, regarding the vehicle ages. And it says previous DFT guidance reminds licensing authorities that it's perfectly possible for an older vehicle to be in good condition, and that the setting of an age limit beyond which they will not license vehicles may be arbitrary and disproportionate. It is nevertheless accepted that a greater frequency of testing may be appropriate for older vehicles. For example, twice yearly tests for vehicles that are more than 5 years old. Then you scroll down to the next page, and it does actually then list, it's got a heading about vehicle testing and vehicle testing frequency. So I'm a little bit uncertain. Are we, because it then goes on to say the following testing requirements are therefore proposed. So it doesn't say they're set in stone, it's that they're proposed. So could I just have a little bit of clarity on that, please? Because I know point 3, particularly where the vehicle is over 10 years old, it says will be tested every 4 months. And from a personal experience, my son, he goes to his Monmouthshire school, and he was picked up by a Newport licensed taxi last year for that academic year. And I did a search on the vehicle, and it was 12 years old and had 300,000 miles on the clock. Now, as a parent, that was quite alarming. So I'm just wondering, how do we manage that situation across local authorities? Or are we all sort of singing from the same hymn sheet? Because obviously, when we're carrying our Monmouthshire children in these licensed vehicles, safeguarding of them is paramount importance. And then my last question comes on to the translator cost. I note that within the report it says that the person applying for the licence fits the bill for certain aspects of translation. Does that also apply if there's a hearing that comes before us within the chamber? Do they fit that bill, or does that fall on the Monmouthshire County Council taxpayer? Thank you.
Taylor, do you
Yeah, certainly. So yes, the medical question. So yeah, if an applicant was say 20 years old, they would need, and they applied for a new license, they would require a new medical at the application stage, and yes, one wouldn't be required until they reach the age of 45. However, if concerns were raised, the licensing authority can require one at any time. Regarding the vehicle age for the tests, yes, currently vehicles aged over 10 years are required a fitness test every 4 months. I believe between 5 and 10 years is 6 months, and then up until 5 years is annually. Those tests are obviously more frequent for older vehicles due to the higher mileage, as you advised, but each local authority would set its own policy. So whilst we do try and, especially within Gwent, keep them similar, each authority is free to determine and approve their own policy. And ultimately, for school contracts, it would be for the passenger transport unit to decide who these contracts are issued to, and whether there's any conditions at that stage that they would implement an age limit. It's not a question that I can answer. That question would need to go to the passenger transport unit.
Thanks, Taylor. Did you want to come back, Jane?
Yeah, thanks. It was just the one about the translator costs as well.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
That's not one that I can answer here. I'll need to go back and get that. Again, I think it would be on its own merit, but I take that point and I can get further clarification on that.
Right, thanks for that. Any more questions or comments? I can't see any hands up. Obviously, certain issues raised today, quite comprehensive ones, which licensing have noted, and we'll obviously discuss and clarify further in their draft report. We now need to decide: are we happy for this report overall to go to consultation? Councillor Eason, you move. Yes. Any dissension on that? Anyone not happy for it to go forward?
Chair, I do apologise.
Yeah.
I would like to raise my dissent simply on behalf of all the EUS citizens, because the lack of clarity, we're just effectively railroading this policy over without any regard to what I believe are the concessions that were made to them under the EUSS citizenship scheme. So before we go forward with this, my recommendation, and I know it won't get support on it because people are simply not interested enough, is that we ask the questions first and then come back. And then, once we've got clarity on about it, we can then make a decision. It's simply wrong to ignore those people.
Okay, thanks. We obviously note what you're saying. I think in that case we need to move to a vote. So Richard Williams will put up in your chat. We'll take a minute or two.
Chair, what is Councillor Ott trying to say? He's trying to say we shouldn't go to consultation, which is what the next stage is. I take all the points he's making as being valid, but that should come out into consultation.
I'm simply saying, Chair, if I may, that I've made a my mind up based on the fact that we've not given this proper consideration before we put it out to public. So the public may not be aware that we're concerned about it, or that we are trying to raise questions. So I'd rather see a more conclusive report and understanding of it before we serve it up to members of the general public, including EUSS citizens.
Thanks. Again, I note, what you're saying, but I think we're at the stage now where we've got to decide, that is your opinion. It might not be the opinion of the whole committee. So we need to go to a vote to decide, is this report suitable to go forward for consultation? I think the only way you can do that is by having a vote, and that's what we'll move to now. Thanks.
Chair, Councillor Easton has moved the report. We need a seconder before we can go to a vote.
Councillor Jackie Strong seconds. Thanks. So we go to a vote now.
Sorry, Chair, are we re-voting? Because I've just voted.
I don't know what's going on now, Chair, to be honest with you. And in fact, the results of the two polls are remarkably different, effectively serving up the same question.
What the poll that the questionnaire, the vote that went forward wasn't correct. What we're voting on now is, does this go forward for consultation? And from looking at that, 70% have voted in favour.
I'm sorry, Chair. With respect, if I may, as a point of order, is we were served up a poll which we voted on. And rather than being told that the poll wasn't appropriate, and probably because people didn't like the answer because it was very close, and you may say that's wrong, well, I don't know. But what we have now is a second question, because we didn't like the first one, where it says agenda item 4, and it asks different questions. And the poll is different, 70% where it was 66%.
Yeah, I think that's, like, what you're saying now is rather erroneous. I'd say the first on Jackie Strong.
Chair, can I just say that not all of us voted in that first one, because we read the actual poll and it wasn't actually correct. So the second actual poll or the question that we've asked for is actually what was required. So actually, I can't see how many people have actually voted, but 70-30, that's the result, not the first one, because some of us didn't actually, sort of make any, we didn't actually vote on the first one. And actually, there's no reason why we can't actually raise some of the questions that Councillor Watts actually raised as part of that consultation.
with respect, Chair, that's not what I don't want to revive it. It would be pointless at this time. I think the consensus of the meeting is the last thing we want at this point is a discussion or a disagreement about what Councillor Watts was saying and wasn't saying. The issue here is that we've had two polls which are noticeably different. The first one is being rejected, which again was different, which was more favourable, arguably, to the point that I was making. And then we've had, without even giving any comment at all, Chair, we've had a second poll, which is now being presented to Council, which is noticeably different. I think it's a bit of a shambles, really, Chair. Well, I say that with respect. The officers have not done us.
Right, you made your point. Jane Lucas.
Yeah, Chair. I have to say, if you did say anything in the chamber that the first poll wasn't as it should have been, we didn't hear it online. I think that's probably the fairest way of saying it. We didn't get it. All we got is the first poll, and then that went, and then all of a sudden the second one came up, and that's the reason why I asked, because I've already voted and now it's gone, and now I'm asked to vote again, and I haven't voted on the second one. So I would like some clarification, please. What is required of us here, please?
Yeah, the first one was incorrect, which I said, and whether that didn't come through, what we were deciding today is this report going forward for consultation. And obviously points have been made today which, like the licensing officers and Jane have recorded, and that, the first bit was an error. So really we should discount that. But we go to Jane, Christopher Edwards.
Yes, sorry, Chair. I think my question has just been answered by yourself and the points by Jane as well. I was just going to say that there's obviously some confusion as to what we're voting for. Some people think that we're voting to accept this policy, and some people think, like myself, that we're voting for this to go to consultation. So perhaps if we can just start this process again, not the whole meeting, obviously, but just what we're voting for, and then get on with it. Thank you.
Do you want to come in? It's not responding. Councillor Easton.
Sorry, were you speaking to me, Chair?
Yeah, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I didn't hear you asking me to speak, so that's why I didn't speak.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we might be making this more complicated than it needs to be. The first of the questions were we in favour of the recommendations? The recommendation at 2.2 is to approve the consultation process. So those of us who voted were voting to approve this moving forward in the consultation process. And therefore, I don't see them being in any way distinctly different as to go forward for a consultation. The only question I had was, I thought there were 12 members present, and at this stage I can only see 11 having voted.
Okay, thanks for that. Tony, Councillor Easton.
Yes, Councillor Lee is correct. All I was concerned about was that the word recommendation suggested that we were going to agree to the whole process. And it was recommendations put to us today, and in 2.1 and 2.2, in other words, the recommendations of the paper put to us. And that is to take it forward to the next stage of consultation. Anybody with concerns, like Ahmed's got concerns, they can be raised in that consultation process, and it can come back to us in December the 5th, I think it is, where we can thrash them out and come to a conclusion. So it was just the way it was written to say recommendations, which suggested we were in agreement with the paper, but we're not. We're in agreement with moving forward for recommendations to consultation. Sorry, you can't speak properly.
Okay, thanks. I think for clarity and taking advice from my legal colleague here, I think we need to put this vote again so that everybody is clear what they're voting for. We're voting, do we send this report forward for consultation? We're not saying we approve it in any shape or form. We're sending it forward for consultation, and people such as Councillor Armand Watt or anybody else outside this meeting who has concerns can actually raise that. So I think we need to put that vote in again, because the slight breakdown in communication with Councillor Jane Lucas, etc. So let's put that again so people are absolutely clear now what we are voting for. Councillor Riley, do you want to say something?
And I may have missed this. Who are we using for consultation? Are we using when it goes forward for consultation? Consultation with who?
Yeah, Taylor, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Riley. It would be all stakeholders, so officers will send this to all licence holders. It would also be publicised on our website, so we can receive comments from any person, but it will be directly sent to all stakeholders, which are our licence holders, to comment on. Those comments will be considered, and then they will be taken back to the committee in December for consideration.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you.
We'll go now. We'll have a clean vote. Just be absolutely clear. Now, there's been a slight breakdown in communication here, I think, in terms of what we're voting for. Alistair, do you want to come back in?
Yes, really, just as we're, Chair, with all due respect, as we're trying to be absolutely clear, then I just refer all members to the recommendations, which is to approve the consultation process, but also to agree to a further report being submitted on the 9th of December. So those are the things that we are now being asked to agree to, presumably. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Neil. That does clarify it. Thanks.
Chair, it doesn't really. I think what it does, if I may, is I'm still going to stand by my point, which is effectively, if I think Sue raised an important point, who are we consulting with? Now, if there seems to be a discrepancy, which I believe there may be, it may be unintentional. I don't believe there's any malice in it, but clearly there is a discrepancy on how we differentiate between people from overseas and effectively citizens in the UK. And I think that's an important point before we go to consultation. I note the pause from everybody in the room, including the officers, to Sue's question, which was, who are we actually consulting with? And I think it does a disservice to the people that went through a process. So I'm advocating for those citizens, and that's my point. So Alistair can say what he likes to say, but I still stand by my point. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Thanks, Councillor Watts. We've obviously listened to your point of view now, but my decision now is that we have a clean vote, that we're voting in terms of this report going forward for consultation, and obviously noting that the points that Alistair Neil made. But the basic crux of it is for people to decide, do we send this report forward for consultation? We've clarified who's going to be consulted, and that is obviously all stakeholders, and it will come back to this committee. So it's not, as it were, a done deal. So can we put that as a fresh one, and everybody be clear about that now? And obviously everybody then can decide how they vote. And I appreciate, Councillor Watts, you've got your opinions, but obviously other people in the committee have theirs as well, and we'll do it in a democratic way. It's unfortunate there's been a slight breakdown of communication there in the actual poll. Yeah, we're just taking a minute now for that to come through, and that's... Yeah, we've had a slight technical hitch now, so you can bear with Mr. Williams while he sorts that out.
Chair, is it going to come up on chat or is it going to come up on the screen?
We're just in the process of doing it now, so it will come up shortly.
So I got something up on chat now that's just pinged up on chat.
No, we just had a technical hitch in the chamber, so it will come up now shortly. Thanks. Yeah, can I just clarify now that you've got the poll in front of you, agenda item 4, that this report goes forward for consultation. You can vote for that or not go forward for consultation or abstain. So if you could now vote, everybody, if that's in on screen, then obviously that would be helpful. Thanks. Thanks. So obviously that's clearly passed. 67% go forward for consultation, 33% not go forward, and abstain, no takers. So obviously that now goes forward for consultation. So thanks for your time on that, and obviously apologies for the slight technical hitches with the actual polling, but I think we've got the right spot. Thanks. Okay, we'll now move forward from that policy. And we're going to go to agenda item number 5, application for street trading consent mobile for Dairy House ice cream. I'm going to hand over to Taylor Watts from licensing.
Chair, Chair, before Taylor carries on, could I raise a point of question regarding the report? It doesn't include West End Ward in Caldecott. Now, West End Ward in Caldecott is mentioned as one of the roads. The division was affected at Caldecott Castle, Caldecott Cross, Dewstow, Mega East Dundee, Mega West, and Roggington 7, but not West End. Can we have some clarification on that before we move forward? Because when we make a decision, it may throw West End out.
Taylor, do you want to come in?
Yeah, of course I can. Councillor, the ward member is Jill Bond for West End, is that correct? Yeah, Councillor Bond was consulted on, so that was an omission from the report. It was a clerical error, but the consultation, I've got the email here on the 7th of July this year. Councillor Bond was included on the consultation email. Okay, thank you. Also, just to confirm, the applicant, Kerry Delap, is not present today. She sends her apologies. So she's confirmed that the application can be heard in her absence. So I'll provide a summary of the report now. So an application was received on the 7th of July 2025 from Kerry Delap for mobile street trading consent. The days and times requested by the applicant are as follows: Monday to Tuesday, 12 p.m. till 7 p.m, Thursday and Friday, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m, Saturday, 2 p.m. till 7 p.m, and Sunday, 2 p.m. till 6 p.m. The streets applied for are within Mega, Undy, Roggett and Caldecott. The list of streets applied for can be viewed in Section 3 of Appendix A and are also continued in Appendix B. The application was sent to statutory consultees for consultation. These included police licensing, police traffic, local ward members and various departments within Monmouthshire County Council, which were the Estates Department, Highways, Planning and Environmental Health. No representations were received by any of these statutory consultees. There is currently a mobile street trading consent in place held by another person since 2021. This person sells similar goods, namely ice creams, and the list of streets named on the other mobile street trading consent can be viewed as Appendix C. Therefore, there are some streets applied for which consent has already been issued for. The streets which have been applied for with consent which has already been issued for can be viewed as Appendix D. So these are the conflicting streets which are attached as Appendix D. Section 7 of Monmouthshire County Council's street trading policy states the use shall not be in direct competition in terms of goods primarily sold with that provided by a nearby retail shop, restaurant, hot food takeaway, or those already holding street trading consent in a marketplace. The use shall not be located within 100 metres of an existing shop, restaurant, hot food takeaway, or those already holding street trading consent which primarily sell the same goods. The full policy relating to the street trading adopted by Monmouthshire County Council is attached as Appendix E. As the application conflicts with the street trading policy, members are to determine the application for mobile street trading consent for the streets named in Appendix D for the applicant, taking into consideration Section 3.7 of this report. Thank you.
Taylor, thanks for that. Obviously, the reason that this has come before committee is because it does, to a certain degree, go against current MCC policy, and obviously it's not in conflict with a shop or a hot food takeaway, but it is in conflict with the current licence holder who has obviously a mobile refrigerated ice cream van, and Dairy House are obviously putting in an application to operate in some of the streets that are already being covered by another trader in an ice cream van. Are there any questions or observations? No, I've just been asked, do we need to exclude the press and public? No, this is in public open forum. Any questions or issues? Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Taylor, for taking us through this application on behalf of the applicant who's not there today. Yes, going back to what you said, particularly in section 3.5 and 3.7, where you refer to this conflict. I mean, can we have some more clarification on what happens in these cases when you have matching streets on those, you know, what one is applying for and the other one's already been granted for? For instance, is something worked out? Are those streets ruled out in this case? Or is there some sort of a shared plan of working that can be agreed? I don't think we have sort of full clarification on what can or can't be done in this case. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So in these circumstances, it's brought before committee because it does conflict with our policy. Whilst it wouldn't necessarily be for the traders, they could come to some sort of informal arrangement, but we govern that, and that's why it's brought here. But the options available to members are to either to grant or refuse, or to attach conditions. So if members wanted to specify certain streets which can be attached to the consent, then that can be done. But there's nothing within our policy which states the traders would need to communicate and to come to some sort of agreement. Hope that answers the question, Councillor.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Committee, if I could also refer you to the Monmouthshire County Council policy, which is on page 217 of your bundle. That policy does include a number of mandatory conditions that will be attached to the consent should it be granted by the committee. There are a number of general conditions which are number 1 until 41, which are included in that policy. And the policy also provides further guidance in respect of applications, which is section 12 of that policy, determination of applications, which explains what criteria an authorised officer will refer to when assessing applications, ranging from site safety, public order, avoidance of nuisance, consultees, observations, permitted trade and hours, suitability of the applicant, proximity to schools and college, and proximity to existing consent holders. So the policy does provide objectives, the criteria, and also those general conditions should the consent be granted. So if the committee could keep in mind the content of that policy, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. We go now then to Councillor Armand Watts.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, sorry, I just, my hearing wasn't in where it should be then. Did you say that as far as the consultees, could you just remind me who the consultees were again and just confirm there was no response?
Taylor, would you like to come in on that?
Yeah, certainly. I can refer to the email sent, so I can read these names off. So it was sent to the local sergeant in Gwent Police, Monmouthshire Highways, Monmouthshire Planning, Monmouthshire Environmental Health, Caldicot Hub, Caldicot Town Council, Meagher Council, Councillor Garrick, Councillor Strong, Councillor Eason, Councillor Crook, Councillor Sandals, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Strong, Councillor Stevens, and Councillor Bond.
So my question is that a non-response isn't a yes or a no, isn't it? So if someone's in favour, and I kind of worry, and I'm possibly guilty of it myself, is that we have no response, and I just worry about. So first of all, putting aside the councillor's lack of response there, but or clarity, some local knowledge always helps. But then also from an officer's perspective, are they satisfied when you're going into other kind of stakeholders when there's no response themselves? And I know this isn't a police issue, but I do worry about the capacity of the police to respond to applications. It's on a slightly different issue, but is it right that we're making decisions based on no response from partnership working?
So, Taylor, do you want to come in?
Yeah, certainly. So the question that I ask the consultees, if could they advise me if they have any representations? So in the report, I advised that no representations were received. In terms of responses, I can confirm the responses if you bear with me. So received responses from Environmental Health and Gwent Police and Councillor Crook to advise no representations. So no other comments were received. However, the email did state, could you advise me if you have any representations to this application by the 20th of July?
Yeah, if I may come in there, I think, again, I take your point, Councillor Watts, but it's very difficult if there is no response.
No,
then there is no response, and if somebody has an objection, and clearly when we judge things like this, or any other application, if people feel strongly in favour or feel strongly against, then they will make their views known. But trying to infer that there is no response, whether it's time pressures or whatever, we can't be held responsible for that. And obviously, if people felt strongly that this licence shouldn't go forward or it should go forward, then they would make a response. So I do think it's quite difficult trying to infer some sort of decision from a no response. We can only go on either positive or negative responses. Okay.
I accept those comments, Chair. Thank you.
Right. Go now then to Councillor Eason. Got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Appendix 3 has got a list of streets, which I think, reading it, is the whole of Sevenside, including Cowent. Now, this applicant has only applied for the areas of, as the ones I mentioned, Meagher and the ones in Caldicot, and including West End, which you had a response for. There's been no request for Portskewett or Cowent, am I correct?
the streets themselves are attached as appendices. So let me just go back onto the report, Councillor.
On appendix.
So Appendix A listed some initial streets, and then that was continued on to Appendix B.
Appendix B got a lot of streets in Portskewitt and Coen. Is that part of this application?
Yes, that's right. So those streets a consent would be granted for. What members are to decide is the streets which conflict in Appendix D. So the streets applied for, which aren't included in Appendix D, would be granted as there's no conflicts within our policy, and so consent would be deemed granted because no representations were received. What members are looking at is the streets in Appendix D.
So to be clear, Cowent and Portskewitt are included in this application?
If you bear with me, Councillor, I'll check the application. So it would be all the streets. So I don't have the specific areas, but it would be the street names which are applied for. So whether they're in Carwent or Portskewitt, I can't say at present. All I can state is if Appendix B, those are the conflicting streets. So that's what the decision is on, is what the conflicts within our policy are.
So all Appendix C are included in this application?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So all in Appendix C are included in this application? You've got places like the Treetops and Trewen, which are in Cowent and Portskewitt. I think we need some clarity on what the actual application was for, because I found that West End wasn't in there, and I'm wondering now whether Cowent should be in there and whether Portskewitt should be in there.
Right. No, Appendix C are the street names which consent has already been granted to the current trader in 2021. Yes. So they're the streets that the consent has already been granted for.
So that can't be transferred to this.
So members are deciding on Appendix D. Those are the streets.
Appendix B.
Hang
on. Get my appendix up.
Appendix D. So the street names. D.
Right. Okay.
So those are the street names consent has been issued for, and those are the streets that the applicant has applied for. So they're the conflicting streets.
Radio. So Appendix D is the one that's going to be included with this application, which excludes Portskewitt and Cowent, but does include West End, which has got Longfellow Road in it, which we've agreed may be a clerical error.
I believe so. That all I can advise is those streets.
I understand
the streets
those streets. I can understand that.
Yeah.
We're going back to the original comment with the clerical error not having West End in there.
Yeah.
I accept that, but we are excluding Cowent and Portskewitt at this moment because they're not on the application.
When you say excluding them,
well, they're not in there. Put it that way. Cowent and Portskewitt. Those are two.
If they haven't been applied for, no,
right,
then they're to be excluded. Yeah, these are in Appendix D. These are the only streets which.
Just West End is the one that needs to be added in then, which Jill Bond has responded to in the positive.
Right. No.
Am I making sense, Chair?
I must admit, my geography down in the south of the county is not as comprehensive as yours, and with all these different streets, etc., it's becoming a little bit unclear.
Clarified the fact that Cowent and Portskewitt are not part of it. That's clear. I understand that.
Right.
Within the original paper, it doesn't include West End, but West End is now in Appendix D, which means that West End, Longfellow, for example, is part of the application.
Then yes.
That's it then. Okay, I know where I am.
All right. Okay, right. We'll move on now. Then we'll go to Jane McKenna. Put your hand up.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, as we've noted in 3.5 says there's a current mobile street trading consent hold which is held by another person. Do we know what days and times they are that they've got for that license? You know, are there clashes with that, or are they completely different, or are there overlaps? And also on page 232.39 of the policy, it says mobile vehicle consent holders are permitted to trade in any one place for a continuous period of no more than 30 minutes, and the consent holder must not then again trade at that location with a period of 5 hours. Now, bearing in mind that, you know, I'm not 100% familiar with the geographical location, but I do know that they've applied for like Caldecott, Mega, Roggett, and therefore I was kind of thinking along the thought process, surely that if someone is only allowed to trade for no more than 30 minutes and is not allowed to return within a period of 5 hours, that there should be enough business to go around, because that one street trader cannot be everywhere all at the same time, if that makes sense. And really, we should be encouraging a business to provide a service for our residents. Thank you.
Okay, Taylor, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, certainly. So the current street trading consent issued allows trading Monday to Sunday, 12 p.m. till 8 p.m. And so that covers the period of time where the applicant for this report wishes to trade. And in terms of the actual location, there's no specific areas which have designated times. And so there could be a scenario where both traders are trading in the same location at the same time.
Does that clarify? Yeah. We go to Councillor Dale Rook.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just curious to know, would we apply the same conditions to a building? No, we wouldn't. If it was in the town centre, you could have 2 ice cream shops in close proximity. I don't understand why we put this policy in place when there is ample time for somebody else to make a living. I don't understand this at all.
Thanks, Councillor Rook.
Yeah.
Taylor, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Councillor Rook. The policy is for street trading, so also take your point for brick and mortar premises. The Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982 states the legislation, and then our policy is around that. The policy does only state, as I said, one trader in one area. As such, there isn't a number on how many mobile ones there are, but I take that point on board. However, we have to look at the policy. Well, members will have to consider that aspect of the policy when making their decision.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Watts, you come back in the second time. Do you want to make a different
point?
Yeah.
If I may, Chair, just to add a bit of zest to the conversation. So I and I'm not there to do Taylor's job, even though we're from the same clan. Is that my point to Councillor Rook is that I understand why you might consider, and councillors or members of the public might consider this to be an anti-competitive practice. However, I would say that we have a duty to protect the business interests of existing businesses, long-standing businesses that have paid council tax to the local authority. So that's my point. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Any other points? I've got Councillor Jackie Strong coming in.
I just want to sort of back up what Councillor McKenna said. I mean, it's a huge area, you know, logistically, I can't see that there would be much conflict between the two businesses. It's a wide geographical area, and we don't see many sort of ice cream sort of vans around. So I can't see that it would be a problem. But I also you know, I'll listen to the rest of the discussion, but I really do feel it's a huge area.
Okay, thanks for that point. I think we've had quite a few points now made. Does anybody else want to say anything before we sort of sum up and go to a vote? No? Okay, so really we've had discussion about the application. Appendix B. Yeah. Okay, I've just been advised Appendix B has been applied for, so really it's all the streets from Appendix B that is being applied for. Councillor Rook.
Nothing. Sorry, Chair. It's a legacy hand.
So just to be clear, and in terms of what we're deciding, we have got to bear in mind that we are going against, as it were, current policy, which says that normally MCC would not allow a trading license where there is a current operator and where there might be conflict. And I think we've got to weigh this in terms of do we allow another mobile ice cream seller from in those streets in Appendix B. People have made points that they think that might be unfair. Others have made the points that it's a large area and that there is sufficient business for these two ice cream operators to operate their ice cream vans. Oh, right, sorry. Okay, we'll have to break out now then to... Yes, yeah. So we'll stop the main meeting here now and we'll go and deliberate, obviously out of the public meeting. Okay, thanks very much. Yes, people who are on remote screen now on Teams, can you come out of this meeting, and obviously you'll have to click on the deliberations section on Teams, and then we'll start that in the next 3 or 4 minutes. No, we're going to a separate room. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to M1 now then. Bring it back to your next step.
still live streaming. Just on the microphone. Yeah.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Croeso nôl i'r gyfarfod. Welcome back to the meeting. We've deliberated on this application to grant a licence purely on the streets listed in Appendix D, and the majority decision, the vote, we put it to a vote. The majority clearly was that we grant the decision to allow this new trader to sell ice cream in the streets on Appendix D. We do appreciate as well that it does go against, to a certain degree, the policy that is currently in operation. And the majority's decision was as well that we ask now trading standard, the licensing department to actually review this policy. That was part of our decision. But we do grant it. Hand over now to Julian Saunders, our solicitor, who's going to give the rationale that we used to make this decision. Thanks.
Thank you. It was a majority decision for the application, and the reasons that were given by those voting for the application included. It's a wide-ranging area with a very large population. The councillors felt that adding another trader would not have a detrimental effect on trading on the original trader in that particular area, and there would be sufficient business and customers for those two traders. And essentially, it's healthy to have competition. That was the opinion and decision of the councillors voting for. They also were of the opinion that the policy should be reviewed, as they felt that it could not have been the intention for a trader to have an open-ended monopoly of that particular area for all time. The councillors which voted against the application were of the view that there's a duty to protect the existing interests of current businesses which pay business rates, and essentially the Monmouthshire County policy is the policy, and that should be applied and complied with. The councillors requested a review of the policy given the geographical areas concerned, and how wide those geographical areas should be in respect of the policy of there only being one trader. Okay, thanks ever so much.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders, for that. So that concludes that particular agenda item. We have run fairly long this morning. It's now 5 to 12. So I propose now a 5-minute comfort break. It's 5 to 12. If you can aim to be back for 12 o'clock, and then we look at the final application that we have to look at this morning. Thanks very much. If you can get back after 12, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we just, yeah, we'll resume now then. I think everybody's online. Yeah, as I can see. Okay. We now move to application agenda item number 6. It's an application for block street trading consent, from Only Foods and Sauces, which is based down in Chepstow. And just to start, we have the 2 people here, but I want to introduce everybody so that the applicant, who is Mrs. Gettings, although I believe Mr. Gettings is going to speak. Right. Yeah, he is an employee, but the actual application for the licence is by Mrs. Gettings, and she will be the licence holder and will be responsible should the licence be granted. So let's do the introductions to go through fairly quickly. It's slightly more difficult. Some people are online. I'm Tudor Thomas. I'm chair of this licensing committee, taxi and regulatory committee. Go to my left first.
Hi, welcome. My name's Jane McKenna. I am the vice chair of this committee, and I represent the ward of Mitchell, Troy and Trelloc United.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm the solicitor for Monmouthshire County Council.
Hi, I'm Richard Williams from Democratic Services.
Thank you. Oh, do you want me to get, sorry.
Good afternoon, Taylor Watts, Licensing Officer for Monmouthshire County Council and author of the report.
Good afternoon, Jane Rogers. I'm the Chief Officer, one of the Chief Officers for the Council and cover licensing and public protection.
We go to Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie Strong. I'm a County Councillor in County Court Cross.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Councillor Tony Easton, Dukes of Ward in Caldecott.
Thanks. We go on screen now then, and we go to Councillor Martin Newell.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Councillor Martin Newell. I'm County Councillor for the Monmouth Town Ward.
Thanks. Councillor Alistair Neil.
Hello, I'm Alistair Neil, Councillor for the Gobian Var Ward, and I'm member of this committee.
Councillor Armand Watts.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Armand Watts. I'm the County Councillor for Bulwark and Thornwell.
Councillor Sue Riley.
Hello, I'm Sue Riley, member of the committee and also co-councillor at Bulwark and Thornwell.
Councillor Dale Rook.
Hi, I'm Councillor Dale Rook, representing Chepstow Castle and Larkfield wards and member of this committee.
Thanks. Councillor Jane Lucas.
Hi, my name's Jane Lucas. I'm County Councillor for Osbaston in Monmouth and I am a committee member.
And Councillor Chris Edwards.
Good afternoon, everyone. Councillor Christopher Edwards, member for St King's Mark Ward in Chepstow and member of this committee.
Okay, thanks. If Mrs. Gittins, if you could introduce yourself and then your husband, please.
Yeah, I'm Kelly Gittins and I'm the applicant.
My name's Kyle Gittins and I'm speaking on behalf of Kelly and Only Food and Sources.
Okay. Just to say at this stage, and I know that the applicant and her husband have been through the process last week in terms of alcohol licence, but my key advice today is not to be overfaced by the formality, sitting in front of the crest, etc. And obviously I will chair the meeting so that you obviously have a fair hearing. When I ask you to speak, which I will later on in the meeting, you've got a maximum of 10 minutes. I might sort of allow slightly more, but 10 minutes is generally the rule. There is no one else that has said that they want to speak from outside the committee today. No one who has objected or etc. or in favour of it. So we will look at 2 written objections, but there is no one now coming before the committee. Without further ado, I'll hand on now to Taylor Watts, who's the licensing officer, and he will present the statement of facts summarising this application. Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, if I can just confirm with the applicant, you've had sight of the report and you understand you're entitled to legal advice and representation, and you're choosing to go ahead without legal representation today?
Yes.
That's great, thank you. So I'll now provide a summary of the report. So the Licensing Authority received an application on the 22nd of July 2025 from applicant Mrs Kelly Gittins for block street trading consent. The application requested 3 pitches which would be situated at a yard within Bulwark Industrial Estate. The full application can be viewed as Appendix A, along with a map showing where the pitches are to be situated as Appendix B. The days and times requested by the applicant are Monday to Saturday, 9 AM till 11 PM, and Sunday, 10 AM till 11 PM. The applicant currently holds street trading consent for 1 trailer which sells food and drink since the 10th of July 2024. The consent currently held allows trading Monday to Thursday 8 AM till 2 PM and Friday to Sunday 8 AM till 11 PM. The application for block street trading consent was sent to the statutory consultees for consultation. These included police licensing, police traffic, local ward members, town council and various departments within Monmouthshire, namely the Estates Department, Highways, Planning, Environmental Health and Chepstow Community Hub. Representations were received from a local ward member and town council. The representations can be viewed in full as Appendix C, but are summarised as concerns the trading will lead to competition with building-based traders nearby, and concerned the trading will be more of an entertainment venue and impact it may have on nearby traders and licensed premises. Further to the above, the Planning Authority has informed the Licensing Authority on the 21st of August 2025 of the following. We cannot find any planning permission for food and drink use on the Bulwark Industrial Estate and will be opening an enforcement case to investigate this change of use. However, the Licensing Committee is not bound by decisions made by the Planning Committee and vice versa. The representations were issued to the applicant, who were asked whether they wish to amend the application in light of the representations received or wish to provide a comment on the representations. The applicant's response can be viewed in full as Appendix D and is summarised as planning permission will be sought and contact has been made with the Planning Authority. The trading will bring customers from outside the area to this area where other businesses can benefit. The area is a family-friendly environment and carefully managed. Information has been supplied to local residents on potential nuisances and are actively managed. Section 5 of Monmouthshire County Council Street Trading Policy states block street trading consents will normally only be issued to the following: a market approved by a council, a town or community council, charitable local authority organised and community type events with admission charges not made for entry. Commercial vendors will not normally be permitted to obtain block street trading consent. However, each application will be assessed on its own merit. Section 7 of Monmouthshire County Council Street Trading Policy states the use shall not be in direct competition in terms of goods primarily sold without provided by a nearby retail shop, restaurant or hot food takeaway, or those holding street trading consent and a marketplace. This includes block street trading consents. The use shall not be located within 100 metres of an existing shop, restaurant, hot food takeaway, those holding street trading consents and markets, which includes block street trading consent, which primarily sell the same goods. There are no other traders selling similar goods within 100 metres of the location proposed on the application for block street trading consent. The full policy relating to street trading consent adopted by Monmouthshire County Council is attached as Appendix E. So members are to consider the application made by Mrs Kelly Gettins for block street trading consent, which is attached as Appendix A, taking into consideration the representations received, attached as Appendix C, against Monmouthshire County Council Street Trading Policy, which is attached as Appendix E. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Watts, for that report. We'll now move. At this stage, we would normally ask responsible authorities that have obviously been consulted if they wish to address, or any other persons who had objections. We've received none from anybody who wants to come today to speak against this application. However, we have had two written objections, and they're brief, so I will read them. One is from one of the local councillors, and he says, I write as Cabinet Member for Economy as well as the relevant ward member. The MCC economic strategy stresses the importance to the county of promoting the vibrancy and vitality of our town centres and retail areas. Street trading can add to that vibrancy, particularly when the town has a market day or is hosting events. Street trading can complement other trading when it is occasional in nature. However, care needs to be taken to ensure that street trading complements rather than substitutes the offer being made by conventional traders who pay rent and business rates, as well as managing any waste emanating from their businesses. I regard this proposal as being one which leads to continuous competition for building-based traders in Bulwark, where this form of trade undercuts those who are paying the full cost of their operations. So that's the first objection. The second one is observations from Chepstow Town Council, and this went obviously to their committee, recommends refusal of the application for the following reasons. This seems to be a very significant expansion on the existing street trading in that location to what looks more like an outdoor entertainment venue. Many tables, the dancing area, and the plans include possibly selling alcohol until 2300 hours every night, without further consultation with the licensing authority and the local police, as well as nearby traders and licensed premises. Chepstow Town Council recommends refusal of this application. So those are the two brief written applications. We've not had anything else. I'm now going to hand over to the applicant or her representative to address the panel and submit relevant evidence. And then I will invite questions from responsible authorities. We have no one here, and other people, persons, and then finally from the panel. So I hand over now. It's now 20 past 12, so you have 10 minutes now to address the committee. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Councillor. Thank you for that. So what I want to say is my name is Kyle, and I work with Kelly, and we run Only Foods and Only Treats. We're proud to say that our business, in a very, very short time it's been running, we've just been awarded the best takeaway of South East Wales of 2025, and also we've been entered a finalist of the best takeaway in the whole of Wales 2025, and also just been shortlisted for another award recognising our social media presence. We've built a strong, reputable, not only for good quality, but also how we connect with community, online and also offline. In person, we're family focused, and we're committed to running responsibly and have added value locally. Company. There's nowhere, we see all the time, there's nowhere for children to go in Chepstow. There's always people concerned, where can they go? I can tell you where they go. They can come to Only Foods. That's where they come. You know, they come there, they relax, they just sit there. They don't have to buy any food. They just sit there, they want to talk to people, there's no problem. We always encourage the youth to come and see us, say hello, and do whatever they want, you know, within reason. All we want is them to be respectful and courteous to us. As regards to the community and the economy impact, I'd just like to say this. This year alone, the hospitality sector has lost around 80,000 jobs. Now, if we don't get this license, then that's another 4 jobs that we have to let go this year. We created 4 jobs. Bear in mind, we were just a burger van. We never anticipated us expanding in the level that we have. However, we have. So we utilised the area we had. We made it bigger. We've made it better. And we've made it very community-based. So by saying no to us, we would have to, in theory, let 4 people go. That's 4 less jobs. Small business like us shouldn't be shut down because we don't operate in bricks and mortar. The jobs will never exist if that was the case. We didn't choose this business model to avoid anything. It started off as a simple burger van and then just grew and grew and grew. And the support that we have is fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. The truth is the rates is a very small percentage of a council home or a business rates. This is what some of the objection is based on. Now, what we do far outweighs rates. We pay rent, but in 2 weeks, 450 people outside Chepstow community come to us for a burger. Now, they come for a burger. They go down and see our beautiful castle. They go down into the shops, they spend money in the shops. They put fuel in Chepstow. That's a positive impact on Chepstow's economy. Why would you want to take that away, or why would it be refused? In my opinion, it's crazy, because all we want to do, I love Chepstow. Kelly was born in Chepstow, and it's the best place in the world, in our opinion. This is why we decided to build a business here. When they come and spend money with us, like I say, they go into like the vape shops, or they go into the chemist, or they go around, they spend money in there. It's constantly building growth in Chepstow. Unfortunately, we see quite often on social media that Chepstow is a dying town, and we hate seeing that. That's heartbreaking for us. So what we do is try and make sure that people still come, people see us, and people start coming to Chepstow. I feel like when people associate Chepstow, other than our beautiful castle, when they associate Chepstow, we're associated somewhere around there. Only Foods is in Chepstow. And I think that's a very, very, very proud thing for us to, achieved in a very, very short period of time. Our children grow up in Chepstow. Our families are in Chepstow. And I think, personally, this is very good for Chepstow. Obstructions and safeties. The van will be positioned so it doesn't block footpaths, roads, driveways. Customers will be controlled and will be safe. Will be monitored by everyone on the team. Litter and cleanliness. We all have bins on site. In fact, we have 2 large bins, and then we have 4 or 5 bins around the site to make sure everyone's putting their litter away. And we're constantly going around making sure our area is clean and tidy. We have a 5-star hygiene rating, and we want to keep it that way. As regards to the business rates and fairness, with respect, I don't think this is fair grounds under street trading law that our business already creates jobs and draws people into the town. The wider economic value we bring outweighs the small percentage of rates which we would contribute. And I would even go as far as, in my opinion, I would consider relooking at the policy, because as a subject of this policy, we've had to go 2 months of spending £30,000 in the investment of this trailer and now not being able to trade. And that's because people have objected for a small business to continue. Competition and standards, another point raised. Isn't it healthy to have good competition in a town? Monmouthshire County Council must think so, because in a very small area of Boardwalk, you have 2 chip shops, 2 Chinese, 2 kebab shops. In fact, they're next door to each other. In the town, they have 20 barbers. So is this fair to say, hang on, the only people that should be penalised is street traders, us. So we should be penalised for that, but if you're in bricks and mortar, it's fine. I think that's very, very unfair. I'd even say the worst thing about this, in my opinion, they've objected on the basis of competition in the town where there is no competition. No one does what we do. No one does anything what we do. So they're basing an objection on a company that doesn't exist yet. So therefore, again, I would ask that this license be granted. So if this license were granted, we would thank the members, and we continue growing our success and welcome more and more people to it. Our business has gone from a small burger van to an award-winning brand that creates jobs, brings people into town, and helps support other local businesses. We're asking for the chance to continue building our success, creating more jobs, drawing more people into the town, and keeping Chepstow alive, the town that we all love. So my question would be, if in fact the only issue is rates, then it's nothing to do with safety, public. It's just based on money. which again, I feel that's unfair. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks for that, Mr. Gettings. You've obviously put your case strongly to us. We go now. We don't have any responsible authorities or other people here. So I go now to the panel. So if you wish to make a comment or to ask a question, then obviously... Sorry. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, members. I think it's only fair, as the chair has read out the objections that were received, I think it's only fair that the response by Kelly Gettings is also read out to the committee. That was the response to the objections that were raised.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah, this is the response now then from the applicant. In terms of planning, we generally thought planning permission was already in place for food use on the site, as a food vendor had operated there before us, and we also had the landlord's consent. We now understand planning want to review this, and I have already reached out to them directly by email to clarify the position and, if needed, follow the correct process. Competition from other traders. We don't see ourselves as undercutting existing businesses. In fact, we can evidence that many of our customers travel from outside Chepstow specifically to visit us, which brings additional footfall and spend into the town. Far from harming other businesses, this supports the wider economy at a time when local high streets are struggling. Nature of the site. We are a family-run business, not a nightclub or large entertainment venue. While we have invested in seating and a stage to make the area more welcoming, our events are occasional and carefully managed. We provide a safe, family-friendly environment and are committed to being good neighbours. Community reassurance. We have gone door to door with information leaflets, given residents a direct contact email, which is monitored daily, and we actively manage waste, noise and safety. If any concerns are raised, we deal with them straight away. Our aim has always been to work with the council and the community. We believe our application brings vibrancy, supports the local economy and provides a safe and positive space for families. Please let me know if you'd like to expand further in writing on any specific point from your report. Thanks. Okay. Thanks for that. We'll now go to questions from the panel. As I say, no other authorities have turned up or want to speak. So, members of the panel, if you want to make a point or if you want to raise a question, then obviously put your hand up. Okay, I'll go on then. First, I've got Councillor Christopher Edwards.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Taylor Watts, for talking us through the application, and to Mr. and Mrs. Gettings for applying in the first place and telling us so passionately about the nature of your business, and also tackling the issues as well that were raised in the objections. I think one thing I want to mention, though, is that it probably needs to be answered by Julian, really, the legal representative there. One thing I really can't get my head around, and I think in all fairness to the applicants, is the point number 3.7 in the report, where there's this, decision that needs to be made by planning in terms of we cannot find any planning permissions for this food and drink use on the Bulwark Industrial Estate, and we'll be opening an enforcement case to investigate this change of use. And I can't get my head around how we can make a decision today, really, without that decision being made first.
I think Julian wants to come in. Julian Saunders wants to speak here, the legal representative.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Edwards. Any planning application is a separate application to that of today. Should planning permission not be granted by the planning department, that is obviously something which the applicants would need to respond to. But the application today is for block street trading consent, which is completely separate from planning applications.
Okay, thanks for that.
If I can come back in there, Chair. So basically, what you're saying is if everything goes to plan for on this application today, and we approve it, planning can then further down the line say no.
Yes, it's a separate planning application, and obviously the planning department would look at that application as a separate application to this. So the outcome of that planning application is completely separate to the outcome of this application today.
I mean, I would think it would make more sense to do it the other way around, but there you go. Rules are rules, and we're two separate committees.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And obviously we are here today to consider this application, and we have no remit with planning, so we'll have to park that really. Any other questions or comments that the panel wish to make? Oh, Jane.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you both for taking the time to come in today, and congratulations and well done on your successes so far. It's always nice to hear a new Monmouthshire business startup doing well, so well done. I've just got a couple of points just to clarify, if I may, so I can sort of get my head around it. I noticed in the application it says you're applying for 3 pictures, but you've already got one. So is that 3 in total, or is that going to be an added one to it? Do you see what I mean? So will it make 4 pictures? Do you want to answer the questions as we go along? Is that easier?
Yes, if asked, because I'll forget. I'm sorry. So at the moment, we already have in the place, we have a street trading license for 1 van. However, because we wanted more vans, we've done the block trading. It is 3 in total. In fact, yeah, it's 2 vans and 1 a bar. So it'd be 3 in total, not 4.
Okay, great. And then I just wondered if you could go into a little bit more detail, because I see on the plan you've got it. The 3 pictures one's called Only Treats, one's called Only Foods, and one's called Only Booze. I'm assuming the one that's up and running at the moment is Only Foods. I was just wondering if you could clarify that, and also what sort of things you sell in the different things and the reasons for needing the 3 different pictures, as opposed to being able to issue it all under one, really.
Yeah, of course. So Only Foods is the burger van. We do hot food. Only Treats is the dessert van. So we do crepes, waffles, milkshakes, ice cream, and donuts as well. Sorry, that's the biggest one. Donuts as well. And obviously the Only Booze is the alcohol. We keep them separate for a reason, because what we wanted to create is, when we had just the burger van, people would come, and they come in masses of 10s, 20, 30, 40, 50 even, sometimes even more. And it was very disappointing for us to see when they come to the van and they would eat their food in the van. So Kelly and I sat there and was like, how can we change this? He said, well, we have to, put seating there. So what do we do? How do we keep people here longer to enjoy the company, to enjoy it? So then that's when we decided on desserts. And then obviously the alcohol is 3 separate pitches. So anyone can choose what we want. The whole idea is keeping people there. We don't want people to come, get a burger and go. It sort of defeats the object of what we're trying to create. We want people to come in to chat, so they want to come to us. Or we want them to have a burger, have something sweet, and then on the weekends, if they're enjoying it, have a beer. That kind of vibe.
Thanks. And then I've got a couple more questions, if I may. Just wondering, sort of around your... I'm not here to criticise your business model or anything. I was just trying to get an understanding. So who is your sort of catchment? Who are you aiming this for? Because you mentioned children, youth, but then you're on an industrial trading estate. So are you then trying to capture employees from that estate and visitors that come to that, or are you trying to encapsulate people from the town? And the reason why I asked that question as well is because then I've noticed you want to change the trading hours from 8 till 2 on Monday to Thursday, and then 8 till 11 on Friday to Sunday. If you are aiming at people coming to the trading estate's likely to open from sort of 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, then you might miss your breakfast type category. I'm just wondering your sort of rationale and your reasons kind of around that, really. Thanks.
So we welcome everyone. We don't want to be like certain kind of people. We welcome everyone from 6 weeks old. We've had as young as to 70, 80 years old. We're not particular as in like we want that kind of person here, we want that kind of person. We know what kind of people we don't want there. However, we encourage everyone to come and enjoy our hospitality. The reason why we done bigger trading hours, we have no intention of trading longer, is just, for instance, someone asked us if we would cater for a wedding through the week. Then rather than apply for a temporary event notice license and then go through all that again, we're covered. So it's there just to be there if we need it, rather than going through all the application process and everything else again.
And just another question. Have you had any issues that you've come across? You've been trading there since July 2024. Have you come across any hurdles or issues or anything at all?
Only these last 2 weeks.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, thanks for that. Go now then to Councillor Tony Easton, who's in the chamber. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And Councillor McKenna has asked the question I was going to drive forward. I know Bulwark fairly well. You're down the bottom end to the right from Critchcraft in the corner, aren't you? And I was going to ask the question, what sort of daytime trading do you get with the businesses in that area? And would that be expanded to the evenings with basically, you've got two sorts of trade there. The daytime trade with businesses, and evening trade, or evening time trade with itinerant passers-by and things like that. And you mentioned children come in there. What's the level of numbers of children that might be turning up at your van, and what control have you got to make sure that they're safe?
Sorry. So as regards to evening trading, we don't want to start getting involved into evening trading. It's just there, like I say, as an extra if we need it for an event or something. As regards to children, young children come with family. They always come with family. There's one way in, one way out, so we can monitor what's going on, what's going out. Now, the younger generation, say 16 and down towards sort of 12 or 13, when they come in with their friends. They always come down to the lower end of the yard, and we can see them. They're away from the road. It's quite an enclosed area, so we can monitor what's going in and what's going out at any time. We can take sort of, not reliability of the children when they're there, we'll always look after them and watch out, make sure they're doing, but the responsibility is on their parents allowing them to come to us, which is fine. We can't be held responsible for that, as you can appreciate, but we do everything we can to make sure when they're in with us, they're having a good time, and two, they're not in no danger.
Okay.
Should this develop, and you also already got the alcohol trading license, how would you manage the two mixing together? Would you, for example, be having plastic glasses? Would you be having knives and forks, which are plastic, which are not dangerous? Because we've got concerns these days with knives and things like that. How would you basically control the day-to-day running to make sure it's safe? And I am still concerned that children don't turn up, and how safe will children be, because safeguarding is a big problem as far as I'm concerned.
Again, we can't be held responsible for children turning up without their parents. We can only do what we can from a hospitality side. As regards to alcohol, everything is decanned and debottled. We don't have no glass bottles on site. No glasses, sorry. No glass bottles, no nothing. Everything, if we have cans, they go into plastic cups, and then we're monitored. Any plastic cups we charge £1, so then basically they bring it back so we can monitor what goes on. And obviously everyone wants their money back, so they're constantly bringing them back. So that's another way we do it. And when people do leave, we have one of us at the end of by the gate. There's only one way in, one way out. At the gate, make sure no one's taking drinks or taking anything from the site that shouldn't be. And sorry, there was another question? Okay.
Okay, thanks. Looking round now, are there any other questions or concerns that people want to raise? Jackie Strong, you've got your hand up.
I just, thanks both, I'm sat behind you. I am a bit concerned that currently you're doing sort of 8 till 2, and then you want to expand to sort of 11 o'clock at night. You're telling the committee that it's just sort of one-off events. I'm just wondering whether it might be better to apply for a one-off kind of license. I don't know. I'm kind of newish to this committee. It just feels that if we say today you can have that length of time, there's going to be more, and you decide to do most days till 11 o'clock at night, there'll be more nuisance, there'll be more noise and more disruption. I don't know how close in sort of proximity you are to local sort of residents, really. But how can you reassure the committee that your plan isn't to have, drinking till 11 o'clock most nights?
Yeah, go on.
So drinking alcohol is only to be sold on the weekends, which the license agreed last week, and it starts at 12 o'clock and it finishes at 10:30, which is recommended by the police and by environmental health, which we've agreed to. It's no drinking in through the week. There's no behaviour like that in the week. We done it to 11 o'clock, like I say, just to cover ourselves. But I stress to the point that, okay, even if we did want to serve food to 11 o'clock, what is your objection against that? It's not our intention, but I don't understand why there's a concern on that. Because what we want to do, we just wanted to safeguard ourselves rather than doing all this all over again.
Thank you for that. It's I didn't realise what the decision was last week, so thanks for clarifying that. That's lovely.
Okay, thanks. We go now then to Councillor Amon Watts.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, thanks for the presentation, both. It's I've got to be honest with you, you've done a really sound job at promoting your business, and it's happened in a really quick space of time. Councillors who are not au fait with Bulwark, I think it, overall it's added value and competition to Bulwark, and it's revitalised what frankly is a very dreary area. And I always reflect on, really, we could probably, I'm not grandstanding, but, as a council, we could do more for the area. So I admire your entrepreneurialism. I guess my concern is, though, so I've said all the nice things now, I appreciate you've kind of, you're looking to extend or, access more footfall by saying selling alcohol over a longer period of time, which I don't have a problem with because there are other venues. I guess I am slightly sympathetic, being a former trader myself, effectively paying council tax and so on and so forth. But I guess my concern is the management of, say for example, you've got like a match day, it's the FA Cup, or say it's an international, and your footfall is up, you've got a lot of people there, and things can get a little bit leery, which they can do, let's be honest. A bit of KG and Chepstow, not everybody, it has improved massively. The drinking culture across Chepstow has improved since when I was a lad anyway. How are you going to manage that? Are you going to bring in, I guess, professionals that can, I guess they're not called bouncers anymore, but that's what I'm calling for. It's a lot to manage yourself, really. I know you're a well-known local lad and people have respect for you. You're a big burly lad and all the rest of it. But if you've got suddenly you have an incident that kind of breaks out and then becomes uncontrollable and you have to phone the police, I guess my concern would be the police are not going to be very happy about it, assuming that they actually turn up. What's your response to that?
That's a very good question, and it's very important as well. So we would, if we ever thought that we can get to a point where it was going to be hundreds of people there, then we would get more staff. And if alcohol was going to be served, then we would get doorman. I believe doorman is what they're called, or door staff. Then we would then look at a company then to provide door staff.
Okay, thanks. Any other question? Councillor Dale Rook.
Thanks. On one hand, you're encouraging the youth to attend, and then on the other hand, you've got an application. You have an application granted to sell alcohol from 12. Now, how do you stop the two from mixing? You know, the ewes you were saying are usually down the far end of the yard, which is in close proximity to the booze truck. How are you going to keep that separation to protect the youngsters from the dangers of alcohol? Thank you.
Sorry, so just to make it clear, so where the children play is further down towards the burger van, not the booze. The booze is right at the top as you come out, as you look at it. Sat in there is in the top left-hand corner, so it is quite a considerable way from there. You know, we're constantly monitoring, and we training will be given to make sure that children are always safe. And please, I want to stress this. This isn't like a pub. This isn't a nightclub. This isn't anything. You know, for example, we've run now several events with alcohol, with children and everything else. And, you know, to touch wood, we haven't had no issues with the police. We've had no problems. We had noise complaints, which we dealt with. Because we dealt with everything accordingly. If we think when someone's getting drunk, that's not the kind of environment we want around. So then we would ask them politely to leave, because that's not the thing that we want. We're building a family environment. We're not building a pub where everyone can come and get absolutely, excuse the expression, drunk, lashed, or, you know, something silly, you know. So we're always monitoring and making sure what's going on, and make sure everyone is taking their own duty of care as well as us taking their duty of care.
One other question.
Yeah.
If at an event where alcohol is sold, you come across a younger person drinking alcohol that has been supplied to them by an adult, how would you handle that?
They would be asked to be removed, and the police would be called immediately, because obviously someone giving child alcohol is against the law. So the police would be called, and the parents would be asked to leave straight away.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or queries from the panel? I don't see any hands up. Taylor, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to clarify that the sale of alcohol and regulated entertainment licence has been granted under the Licensing Act. So this application is for the permission for 3 vans selling goods, and it should be based on the representations received attached as Appendix C on the report. So the sale of alcohol and regulated entertainment is under different legislation, and that has been granted with conditions. So the application members are determined today is for the permission for 3 vans selling goods, which is the reason we're here is based on the representations received as Appendix C. So just to clarify that point.
Thanks, Taylor. Thanks from licensing. Thanks for that. That helps to clarify.
Chair, if I may, though, sorry to intervene, and I've had
can
a
we go
discussion.
through? Is anybody else got hands up now before? Yeah, I'll go to Tony Easton first, because you've got to use the hands up so that we can keep track.
Well, no, it's just a point of order, really, on what Taylor said, really, which was effectively, it's not another question. It's not to kind of further cross-examine the witnesses or to have dialogue with the councillors. It's directly in response to what Taylor said, which is that members weren't, the meeting wasn't live last week, so that was a disadvantage. So inevitably, members who didn't sit on the panel last week are going to have a broader concern about the sale of alcohol, and that's effectively the theme of this meeting. Let's be honest about it. So that's why I think it's only right that councillors have then asked questions, and there's been a fair response, Chair. I don't think there's anything wrong in that, and I don't think it's necessary for Taylor to, basically draw us back to the original legislation. This is a free-flowing meeting, and I think it's good to have an open and transparent process about all of it.
Yeah, okay. We have had discussion about that, but I think we do have to sort of separate the decision-making process. Last week, subcommittee of taxi and licensing made that decision, and that was decided in favour. And I think, to be fair to Taylor, what's the licensing officer? He was just reminding us of that. But I can see the point that you were actually making. Councillor Tony Easton.
Yeah, just one curious question. This is for 3 vans. Wouldn't it be fundamentally different if it's one large van?
Cost and having everything separate, because it's not, in my opinion, good business to have food, like dessert van with burger van and alcohol all in the same van, and to buy a van to have, it would need to be 50 or 60 foot long, which the cost would be, yeah, too much, and rightfully so. You know, the cross contamination then would affect our hygiene rating. So you would have to have a wet license. You would have there's so many clinical differences, which wouldn't be cost effective or wouldn't be right.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Rook, do you want to come back in?
Yes, please. My comments were around safeguarding of children, and not to do with the sale of alcohol, even though alcohol could be a contributing factor. Could I just ask, does Mrs. Gittings have a safeguarding policy that they could adhere to?
It's not something that we have fundamentally in place, but if that's something you require, we can put it in place.
Right. Okay. Okay, thanks for that then. Okay, we've got to the end of the questions and comments. Again, there's no responsible authorities here, so obviously they're not going to speak. I move now then to just... Yeah, go on. Oh, you might get.
Sorry. When you said safeguarding policy, is that safeguarding policy just for children or throughout the site? Sorry, because we haven't got a safeguard policy just for children. We have a policy for the whole site, across the whole site. It's not that we haven't got a policy in place, because we have.
Okay. Yes, go on.
The safeguarding policy was introduced in 2014. Implemented in 2016. It is safeguarding for adults and for children.
Okay, so we move now then to the final part of this meeting before we go into closed session, and we go back to the applicant or applicant's representative just to sum up your case, hopefully fairly briefly, but to sum up why you're putting forward the case today, and then we'll go into private session.
I believe we've said, without going over everything over again, we've summed out our case that we're community based on what we bring to Chepstow alone. You know, the objections, in my opinion, I don't feel as they carry much weight, because competition is great. I think healthy competition is fantastic. And also, as regards to rates, I don't think we should be penalised because our business model is different to another business model. And what we bring into Chepstow far outweighs the rates that we don't pay because we're a trailer.
Right. Thanks for that. That was obviously brief and to the point. I'm going to close this session now. Sorry, hand over now to the legal representative.
Thank you, members. It's just some legal aspects I need to cover with yourselves. Monmouthshire County Council has endorsed the provisions of Schedule 4 Local Miscellaneous Provisions Act into their policy, which needs to be considered in today's application. The policy is in the bundle on page 251, and there's some important aspects of the Schedule 4 of the Miscellaneous Provisions Act, which I need to refer to yourselves before the deliberations start today. Specifically, Section 7, Street Trading Consents. Section 2, subject to subparagraph 3, that below, the council may grant a consent if they think fit. When granting or renewing a street trading consent, the council may attach such conditions to it as they consider reasonably necessary. and in respect of those conditions, without prejudice to the generality of subparagraph 4 above, the conditions that may be attached to a street trading consent by virtue of that subparagraph include conditions to prevent A, obstruction of the street or danger to persons using it, or B, nuisance or annoyance, whether to persons using the street or otherwise. That's section 5. And then members should also be referred to section 8, which states the holder of a street trading licence or street trading consent, which is the case here, may employ any other person to assist him in his trading without a further licence or consent being required. And members will be referred to the Monmouthshire County Council policy, which lists the general conditions which are attached to any consent which is granted. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for that, Mr. Saunders. Thanks for highlighting that policy. We'll now go into closed session, so this meeting will go on hold in here, and we'll go to another room and obviously deliberate, make a decision, and then come back and feedback to the applicant. Thanks. Diolch yn fawr.
Yeah, well, yeah, just be about the live streams on. Yeah. The live stream have kept us well informed. The pattern coming on too this thing. Oh, right, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Thanks. I know this. Yeah. I went this morning was very long. Yeah, it's not my fault. So we put an application in and they accept it. So yeah. Can you put it? I don't know. So we put the application. So you guys are retro. Yes, it's already done and it's already done. And to be fair, like just now, we just went out and we just created six market policy. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. You know, it's a certain policies as a whole. Yeah, it is. I mean, SES has set the alcohol side of it. That's where we is a license objective markets. It's not around the depth of responsibility. It should fall. It fall under the license in that way. I mean, they're not potentially part of the year. The win was 60 soon in time, so many months in the 9 years. Yeah, 160. Even then, children coming up. Yeah, sorry for the delay. No. Okay, thanks all.
We'll restart the main meeting here in the chamber. We've had our deliberations, and after long discussion and discussing the two written objections, which we did take into consideration, but the committee have decided to actually grant the licence for the two, or is it three vans? My legal colleague Julian Saunders now will give our reasons, our rationale, and there are some conditions and recommendations. Julian, thanks.
Thank you. It was a majority decision by the members, and the reasons given by the members who voted in favour of the application are this is a reasonable application and reasonable steps have been taken in respect of food hygiene and looking after people in a sensible way. This is a well-maintained application and the objections have been addressed by the applicants. There is a duty to support small and medium enterprises and to be seen to support these enterprises, and we wish them all the best. We should encourage this sort of business, and if things do go wrong, the local authority can intervene. The members made a recommendation to the applicant, and that's in respect of door staff, should there be large numbers of people attending the premises, and a condition has also been imposed attached to the consent, which is for the applicant to implement a policy for the safeguarding of children and vulnerable people. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for that. I now declare the meeting closed. It's been a very long morning and partial afternoon, but thanks everybody for your contributions and inputs over the meeting. Diolch yn fawr. Thanks.